Humanity has existed for a really long time. Times with war, peace, abundance, scarcity, ignorance, and wisdom have passed. And finally, after all these years with every part of the world divided, humanity has risen above the ashes, only to realize they had the perfection, the beauty, the desire they had been seeking for so long right beside them. The chicken. They eat rocks. They are perfect. And it's just like that how humanity took chickens as the divine example, leading them to absolute prosperity. They adapted themselves to their culture, beliefs, and priorities. And in that process came the great communication reform. It gave people a universal language, a single voice that united them all. Pullum Lingua, the language of chicken. Chapter 1. So, let's get started. There's 7 kinds of building blocks for the language. The 3 main ones are consonants, vowels, and stops. They form the words for nouns, verbs, and describing words, which I'll refer myself with their general term adjective. Then there's accented vowels, head movements, rooster choirs, and wing flaps. They compose the remaining kinds of words. Each one has its own unique purpose. In the language, there are 3 main consonants, Q, P, and T. Q's pronunciation, however, can change between ka and ka, as will be explained later. On the other hand, there are stops. They can have 5 different lengths. The vowels are somewhat more difficult. In the first place, we have the default ones, also known as shy vowels. The main ones are a and o. However, each one has its own open and closed variation. A and a for a, and o and o for o. They are romanized as shown. By default, they don't have tone. However, in certain situations, they may acquire a rising, to, or a sinking tone, to. Similarly, these vowels are also differentiated between clear and opaque, a and a. Opaque vowels sound as if Shakira sang them. Additionally, these vowels are also differentiated by pitch change. The next vowel can be higher, staying, or deeper. Then there's the less common thunderous vowels. They have the same 4 variations. However, they are only separated in gargled, falsetto, and fuzzy vowels. And like the shy vowels, they also have the clearness variation. Moreover, they are always long. Separately, there's rooster choirs. They are 3 loud simultaneous rooster crows tuned to different notes of the A Japanese pentatonic scale, tuned to A equals 380 Hz. Why 380 Hz? Well, it looks like a chicken nest. The chords can be based on each degree of the scale, and the second and third notes can be either 1 or 2 degrees higher than the previous ones. Then there's the not sound based word building blocks. Head movements have 8 possible variations: up, down, left, right, forwards, backwards, clockwise, and counterclockwise. And lastly, wing flaps can be downwards, round forwards flaps, and round backwards flaps. Chapter 2. Apok, tak, kop, patak, toka, top, tok, pa. There's 7 types of words. Nouns representing existing concepts, verbs representing actions, adjectives representing describing words, indicators that connect words by adjectivizing the noun that precedes it, verb announcers and concluders, sentence announcers, and sentence concluders. Those last will be explained shortly after. To construct nouns, verbs, and adjectives, there's a meaning buffet available. It consists of base concepts which possess abstract ambiguous meaning, like height and quantity. Then there's the modifiers. They are physical things that would be relevant in a chicken's world. They either express its own meaning as a noun or can be paired with a base concept and specificate the spot of the range of its meaning. There's also a few base concepts that may behave occasionally or usually like modifiers. They can be paired, however, to other base concepts like a modifier could. An example is thing or livingness, which would have the meaning of how living something is. However, it alone evolved to mean something living. It would have to be modified to convey another nuance of its whole originally intended meaning. These building blocks are then set in a chain that will paraphrase the meaning of a word. Between them, they can have the following relationships conveyed by the stops that follow every block. An absent stop is used only after modifiers that modify a base concept that follows it. If more than one is employed for a single base concept, every but the last modifier acquires a sinking accent. A relaxed stop is used to create a string of blocks constructing a complex block. It can contain both modified and unmodified blocks. They are written from more to less subordinated and may leave some, although must be the minimal, room for interpretation. A medium stop is used to connect each complex block or just a block directly to the last most elementary block. If there's more than one complex block, the first block of each subsequent one acquires a rising tone. That means the first one doesn't get any tones. Then there's the long tones. They just separate words. And lastly, there's the really long tones. That separate sentence after and before the sentence concluders. And an additional rule is that before an indicator, there can only be an absent stop. As this may be a difficult concept to digest, I'm giving some examples and thereby explaining a few more things. These are a few examples. You may notice that while some words are really short, some other ones may become, in contrast to English, really long. Also, you may notice that it is usual for adjectives to end in state, verbs in action, and although way more variable, nouns in thing or idea sometimes. Chapter 3.
Papuk tuk tok tok kuk tok patak kop tok kop patuk tok pa tak.
The most important aspect is the syntax. Every sentence must have the same syntax. It consists of the following parts in the following order. First comes the sentence announcer. Besides stating the beginning of a sentence, it also gives some additional information regarding its context. English conjunctions and linking words are the equivalent. It consists of a rooster required followed by some wing flaps. Then come the complements.
Subject complements.
In general, complements are adjectives or adjectivized nouns by means of indicators. They are arranged from most to least direct with the subject.
You must remember, however, that the adjectives also have to go paired with an indicator that indicates that it is describing a word.
Then comes the subject. It is only one word but may have as much meaning as possible, made by the meaning buffet within itself. In literally and formal writing, you may not use adjectives. Every piece of information should be contained within a really specific noun. Then there's always the verb announcer. It has the verbs, tense, and recurrency information. There's 3 tenses, past, present, and future, and 2 recurrencies, once and many times. Each announcer is a mix of them. There are 2 kinds of verbs, continuous and specific. Continuous verbs express a constant state that an action portrays. Its verb announcer conveys what time areas it reaches. Then, on one hand, if it has once recurrency, the verb's continuity is kept. It just reaches all the time zones that were discussed. On the other hand, if it's marked as many times, the verb is cut up into segments that exist throughout the time zones talked about. It is no longer continuous. Then, specific verbs express an action that lasts a set time. In their case, once is one time that lasts through the marked time zones, and many times that it is performed recurrently through them. However, before the verb in the sentence comes the verb complements 1. They give contextual information about the verb that follows them. I already explained how they work, the verbs, so let's move on. After the verb, follow the verb complements 2. They give information about the means of performing. However, it must be noted that the order of the complements is the other way around. The concept that is the most direct to the verb goes first, then the more distant ones. The indicators are the other way around too. They go now before the adjectivized or modified word. Every verb section finishes with a verb concluder. It expresses the type of sentence and how much its content concerns the speaker and others involved. After this, the object follows. There are sentences without and with an object. When there's an object, you can imagine a dog, the attacker, the subject, and a prey, the chicken, the object. It's reminiscent of accusative. Their object complement follows, and like the verb complements to, they are written the other way around. Lastly comes a sentence concluder. Its job is not only to indicate the sentence's end, it is to indicate the relationship between the sentence's event and the subject and object correspondingly.
It consists of a brief sentence of appreciation to chickens. This syntax is unchangeable, and for translation, sentences must be arranged to fit this system. I quite like it. It looks like a chicken. Then, there's a few more rules that must be taken into account. In the first place, there's ka and ka alternation. In order to express continuity among sentences, that means to state that the idea is still being expressed, you alternate those two phonemes. It is done through the ancient binary code. It is the Polish word for chicken in binary, repeating itself throughout the continuing sentences. Each number is a syllable that begins with Q. The ones that would be then a 1 are changed to ka. Another rule consists of subject repetition. If there's more than 30 syllables of the subject, it shall be repeated before the sentence concluder for easier comprehension. Similarly, if a pronoun is used as the subject, the concept it was referring to shall be repeated as well, to just refresh the mind of the listener. However, if the logical thing was to use a pronoun, it must be used. If not, the sentence is considered ungrammatical. Besides, it can also be noted that quantity and other more secondary information about words is not always needed to be explicit. They can be deduced from the context. Then we have negation transmission. If a clause negates the following subordinate clauses, they shall be written as positive. The Q differentiation binds them together. Next up, to convey the humor of the speaker, it must be rated on the scale from 1 to 11 and portrayed via opaque syllables. Similarly, there's writing judgment. On a scale from 1 to 19, it must be portrayed how good the written sentence is for the speaker. If it is a conversation, you rate the writing of the last sentence said, the first one and the second ones, and last but not least comes the numeric system. A base 8.93 is employed. The value 8.93 is divided into 17 equal segments, whose factors from 0 to 16 correspond to the 17 glyphs. This graph explains it well. This way, their 12 would be equal to around 9.9805882235 for us, and our 1 would equal around 1.156214945 for them. Chapter 4.
Tak, kop, patak, tok.
The language has a quite straightforward writing. Every sentence consists of a chicken-based dish. For every syllable, a component is added, and each part of the dish corresponds to each part of the sentence. These are the components: drink for sentence announcer, side dish topping for subject complement, side dish for subject, cutlery and miscellaneous for verb announcer, the sauce for the verb complements 1, the protein for the verbs, the protein toppings for the verb complements 2, the cutlery placement for the verb concluder, the salad for the object, the dressing for the object complements, and the salad toppings for the sentence concluder. These components of the sentence are then arranged as follows in the plate. Additionally, the love and care the plate was made with, on a scale from 1 to 11, expresses the humor grammatical aspect of the sentence. Then there's the writing of steps. The way the components of the sentence are placed indicate them. This table shows all of them. And next up are the indicators.
They are written by placing pebbles over the syllable closest to it on the indicated subordinate word. These variables express them. They are a nice addition to the plate. It enables a better digestion for the reader.
As I won't be able to write the whole translation of the text, I'll write a small example sentence.
So now, kindly close your eyes and permit your imagination to embark upon a splendid gastronomic journey. A symphony of culinary preparations begins as we prepare to dine. Delicate fingers are tenderly cleansed with the refreshing essence of lemon-infused water, while the soft, meticulously folded paper napkins grace the table, with their elegant rectangular forms folded to the right. Glistening in the regal splendor, the magnificent silver cutlery takes the center stage, with the fork poised gracefully on the left and the knife's gleaming blade facing it, a testament to the anticipation of a splendid meal. Our chosen elevation is a tantalizing orangeade, adorned with a succulent orange slice that delicately clings to the glass's sugared rim, granting a delightful citrusy welcome to the feast that awaits. Presented before us is a plate of decadent butter fettuccine, meticulously crowned with flaky salt and caramelized onions. It is accompanied by succulent slices of grilled chicken breast, tender pan-fried cubes of chicken breast, and delectable pan-fried chicken wings, cut the same way, all artfully arranged. Cascading over this array of gastronomic delights are sauces of the utmost distinction. A velvety stroganoff sauce, Felix's signature almendrado peanut sauce, and a wine reduction that beckons with an irresistible allure. As the final touch of culinary artistry, we bestow upon this masterpiece a garnish of freshly chopped tomatoes, fragrant dill, and the zest from the vibrant, citrusy yellow lemons, elevating the dish to a symphony of flavors and colors. On the side awaits a refreshing cabbage salad, kissed by the sweetness of honey and the subtle notes of oregano, lovingly dressed in vegetable oil and adorned with crispy croutons, luscious Parmesan cheese, sesame seeds, and a medley of exquisite nuts. And completing this Epicurean journey, a precisely curated assemblage of individually selected pebbles adorns the plate in an artful composition.
Chapter 5.
Papuk tup to to ku tok patak pup.
I'm gonna translate the example sentence given by our benevolent circus master, Agma Schwa. It consists of 3 sentences. The first one goes, according to all known laws of aviation, there's no way a bee should be able to fly. This sentence is then separated into 4 segments, for a natural translation in the language. The second sentence, its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground, is similarly separated into 3. And the last sentence, the bee of course flies anyway because bees don't care what humans think is impossible, into 2. So, let's get started. Kat pak kut kap kup ka tak tu pok kop ka tu pop pop kop ka tu patak pop pop ka putuk tup pop ka tupuk kut kat ku kap kup tak pak kop kutot to kut pa tut po tak po tak kop tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kapok kop ku po kapok tak tok kapok tak katu kopok pak pak tak tut katop kap top tatap kap tatap tak pak kop kutot to kut pa tot po tak po tak kop tu pak kap ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kapok kop ku po kapok tak tok pok tak tok ka ko top kap ka pak tu po tap kap tak taka kot pak kut kap kop ko tak kut kop pak tak tut pak kop kutot tak kut pak tot po tak po tak kop tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kap kop ku po kopok tak tok kapok tak tu pok ka ko to tu ko ka tup kut kerup ta pak kop kutot ta kut pa tot po tak po tak kop tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kapok kep ku po kopok tak tok kapok tak tuk kak kat tep kap kok ka kuk pup tat kap tu pak tak tu kap pup tu kap tak tak ka tat tu tok ko pa tak kat pak kat kap kop tu pak kap tak kop pap kop ku ka tok tak tat ku pak kap tak ku pak tak tok kapok tak to ka tep kap ka pak tup tot ta kap tak tak ka kat pak kut kap kop ka kop tak kat tak tu pak kop ko tat pa ko tat ta tok ta tu kut tok ta ta po ko pak tak tok tak top po tak ko ka tat ko ka tat ko ka pak kut tak pup ta ta pup ko ta ko kot pak kop kutot ta kut pa tot po tak po tak kop tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kapok kep ku po kapok tak tok kapok tak tu pak kop ka tak tu ko kak top kut kapok tok pak kop kutot ta kut pa tot po tak po tak kop tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop kop kot kapok kep ku po kapok tak tok kapok tak ka tu ku ka tup kut ku tap pak tap kat ko kap kop tak tak ka pop put tap pop tak ko pa kat ko kap kop tut ko pa ta pop to kop kut tu pak kop ko kat ko kap kop ko kot kapok